At Grand Rapids Chevrolet GMC in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, we have the trucks. Over 47 new Silverados and Sierras sitting currently on the lot with more to come. We have all the options: LT, RST, LTZ, High Countries, ZR2s. We have heavy duties. We have Sierra, SLT, Elevations, Denali's. We are equipped for the truck you are looking for. With great rebates currently, with up to $12,500 off on select models, now would be a great time to take advantage of savings and get yourself into a new truck today. Grand Rapids GM in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tea with Ms McGill Show, presented by our friends over at Fortune Bay Resort and Casino. Make plans today to visit Fortune Bay Resort and Casino on beautiful Lake Vermilion. Fortune Bay offers 172 rooms in a smoke-free resort, indoor pool, full-service marina, RV park, world-class golf, several dining options, a bar, and, of course, 24/7 gaming. So get up there and get your game on. Visit fortunebay.com for more details and plan your trip up there today. And for those of you that are fishermen, as you know, Lake Vermilion is known as a great fall fishing lake. So especially people down in the metro, make plans, get up to the bay, get your game on, bring your boat, catch some walleyes, do the whole deal. So
bring a couple extra sleeves of golf balls if you're going to play the wilderness.
Of course, you got the wilderness there too. It's awesome. Yeah. So plan a weekend, like I said, fortunebay.com. It is Puka speaking. Is the star of the show, Coach Reed Larson, episode 90. And of course, most of you know Coach Larson's not just a hockey coach, but a football coach. So how's things going so far?
Well, we're 1-1 at the moment, so we're happy with the start, but we took a step back last week with a defeat. We got defeated by Duluth-Denfeld, so we got a rebound. We got Rockridge coming up on Friday, and we're excited to get into Game 3.
Okay. All right. Well, best wishes.
We'll take it.
We'll get them.
Best wishes.
It's not their homecoming game already, is it?
I'm not even sure when their homecoming game is. It doesn't even matter because we're going to spoil it if it's homecoming.
All right. Hammer the like button. We have a very special guest. Many of you have probably seen him. We have Liam McHugh. He's your NHL on TNT. Are you like, what do you, you're not an analyst. What would they consider you?
I'm a studio host. I'm a babysitter, basically. I have.
We'll talk about that too. You probably are busy babysitting. So thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And just to kick it off a little bit. Just kind of where'd you grow up? Where are you from? What sports did you play? Kind of how did you get into your career a little bit? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Long Island. That's what we say. You don't grow up in Long Island, you grow up on Long Island. And I played just about every sport growing up. I didn't accept ice hockey. Honestly, I was a fan. The Islanders, I'm 46, so I was there. I was a little boy when the Islanders were ripping off 4 straight Stanley Cups. And they were everything on Long Island. They were the biggest story, and you knew all the players. And I remember playing street hockey and having the pads on and pretending to be Billy Smith. And and neighbors saying, "Well, if you're gonna be Billy Smith, you got to hack somebody with that stick a few more times."
That's
but it was fine. I mean, when I was a kid, it just wasn't something you could really do on Long Island unless you had a lot of money. It's. A few kids who were very good kind of made their way out and then wound up moving away. But otherwise than that, I remember asking my dad, I was like, "Hey, I'd love to play hockey." He's like, "That's great." He's like, "Hockey's for rich kids. Here's a basketball. Here's a soccer ball. Yeah. Go learn how to play those sports." So I've always been a fan, but I never played. And then, I wound up playing soccer in college at University of Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
So I was there, played that for a couple of years pretty poorly. And then, but I was also, my senior year there was the year that the Buffalo Sabres went to the Stanley Cup final. Oh. So it was 1999. And, it's why I have such a soft spot for the Sabres team, which has obviously, set the record for futility and not making the playoffs. And every year I make a prediction that they're going to get in, think last year I predicted that they would even win a round in the playoffs. So no predictions this year. That fan base is so devout and so hardcore. I just want something good for that to happen. So, and there's a lot of young talent. So hopefully that happens. But then after that, I wasn't a broadcaster. I was a writer. I wrote for New York Newsday. I was doing high school sports for them. And then I worked for ESPN Magazine back when it was like a phone book. Remember, like the beginning of ESPN Magazine?
Sure, yep.
But then I was also there when like the internet took over and like it just shrunk. And I was not that good a writer, and there were definitely some editors who were like, maybe you should look at something else. Like not so subtly, like try a different job. And I went back to school, went to Syracuse, got my master's in broadcast journalism. When I meet my wife there, was also a broadcaster, has strong Minnesota roots. Her parents are still living up in the Iron Range, and we get up there usually once a year. At least my kids love it. It's like summer camp for them. They're on the lake, or during the winter they're buried in snow. Although last winter they went and they landed, there was no snow, and
we had
my in-laws were just dealing with 3 kids crying like immediately. Like
snow, no, we don't.
But so after there was, I think it's similar to minor league hockey, where it's like, you kind of make your way up. And I worked in Terre Haute, Indiana at a TV job. I worked in Oklahoma City, which was a fantastic place to work. I got to see Sam Bradford win the Heisman. I saw Blake Griffin go from a high school player there to, getting drafted into the NBA. They had the Hornets when I was there because of the hurricane. They lost the Hornets and then got the Sonics while I was there. I was 5 feet away from Mike Gundy when he was yelling, "I'm a man, I'm 40." It was a wild couple of years. A great place to work. Then after that, I was kind of looking for things, and I was out of work for about a year. My wife at this point was a news reporter in Virginia. We were engaged. I was basically just living on her couch and not doing anything. And all of a sudden, I got an audition for a job at Versus. You remember the old Versus?
Oh,
yes.
And they wanted someone to host an all sports show before hockey. And I lucked out and got that job. And all of a sudden, we were moving back to New York. And about 8 months into that, looked like the show was going to get canceled. But at the same time, NBC and Comcast were merging. And that's when Versus and NBC Sports were becoming something. So they knew they wanted to ramp up their hockey coverage. They were going to have this channel to fill. They had the rights to hockey, and I was still being paid. I was still under contract. So they're like, if we're paying this person, we should probably make them work. And I got a shot. I got a chance to host some hockey. And for me, it was tough because you don't talk about it every day when you do an all sports show, especially like one out of New York. It's a lot of football, a lot of basketball. But I had great people that I got to work with. And I always cite this. Keith Jones was such a huge influence on my career. I think he saw right away that I was someone who he could gel with and, could host a show, and he could have a conversation. I could steer him where he wants to go. So he would work with me with hockey. We'd work on, I was smooth enough to get him where he wanted to go. And then I studied my ass off. I looked at it like, hey, I cannot fail at this. I got to make it work. And, hockey fans are unforgiving. Like, this is their sport. They're tribal. They want their teams. Like, if you mispronounce like a player's name on a team, that fan base is all over you. Now, the funny thing is, now I've been doing this for so long where if I mispronounce the name, I get a benefit of the doubt. It's a beautiful thing. Or fans just assume that other people have been saying the name wrong and that I'm saying it right. But the beginning is not like that. The beginning is just awful. Like you're on the
a lot of Russian names you had to learn, huh?
Oh, and then you find out that like 3 years later they actually do pronounce it differently, and then they come in, but they were shy as 18-year-olds, and they're like, yeah, that's not how I pronounce that name. But I had great teammates. I really did. And, the cool thing is I did every sport at NBC. And so I got to fulfill a lot of dreams, but I love this sport, mainly because I love the people, and I love the stories. And now I get to work with such a great group of human beings, people who love this sport, want to make it fun, want to make it interesting. And there's nothing like sitting there when you have Wayne Gretzky at the desk and that guy is willing to open up the vault and just start sharing stories.
Yeah,
in the locker room, behind the scenes, on the bus, and that's to me that's what makes our show a special show.
Yeah, it opens it up a lot. It's, you got Wayne on one side that can bring the stories of, even talking current stuff and going back, 80s and 70s, but then you got Biz on the other side who just keeps things as hilarious as they possibly can be. Like my wife, he just drives her crazy because he brings the theatricals to every single episode that's there in every game. It's between periods. It's like, oh, what's Biz gonna say now? Let's listen.
What's he gonna wear?
Yeah, I mean, and it's so genuine. The cool thing about Biz is I don't think he's ever come into work thinking like, oh, I'm gonna make a viral moment. Like let's try to do something. This is just who he is. And I can ask the easiest question, the biggest softball layup question, like practically leading someone down a path where everyone knows what the answer is. And with Biz, I have no idea what he's going to say. That, which I think, like honestly, I think like 15 years ago might have terrified me, but now it's like it's all I look forward to in the job is like, which is what makes the job interesting. Is like now it becomes more of a listening job. Like I just want to put something out there, and then eventually I want to react to what Biz says.
Yeah, right.
Because and if the cool thing is at TNT, if it winds up being more interesting than the game, or if it winds up being more interesting than what we were breaking down or talking about, they don't care. Like we can just go in another direction and talk about that for the next few minutes.
Yep.
And that's that. I think that's what's special about that place. And the same thing with Gretz, where a number of times, like we've sat down at the desk right before an intermission, and game's been okay, and let's say it's like a November, December game, the stakes aren't that high. It's the first period, it's kind of dragged. And Gretzky, hey, I got this call from this guy, and it reminded me of the story of this time I went to the Hall of Fame, and I was teaching my kid how to shoot the puck in the demo area because he was more of a baseball player, and some 17-year-old came up to me. I had a hat and glasses on, and he said, "Sir, you're gonna want to hold the stick a little bit more like this." And Gretzky's like, "Oh my God, I gotta get out of here." And I said, we're all laughing. I'm like, "Well, we're not talking about the game anymore." He's like, "Oh, he's like, yeah." And he's like, "Is that cool?" I'm like, "Oh, that's it." I was like, "It's all people want to hear. They want to hear that story." Like so,
for sure.
And I think the cool thing is we also have people that respect the game enough that like, once we get to the end of the season, once we get to the playoffs, like. It's serious. We can have fun, but we can also at some point like really dive in, really break down the game. And I think that's what's cool about Biz too. One of the underrated things is how he really does know the game. I honestly like no one watches more hockey than he does. He loves the game. It's his life, and he's a tremendous personality and a tremendous teammate. But he can, if he wanted to, he could probably coach. So, but he doesn't want to.
Well, he's the kind of guy where you're going to hear a colorful response to what's going to happen, whether you like the response or not. You're going to hear it how it happened, and he's going to be real about it, which is pretty cool to watch him.
Oh, for sure. Let me squeeze in a quick ad read here from Aspire Heating and Control, your local Bryant dealer, and of course, Bryant is the official heating and cooling company of your Minnesota Wild. Aspire specializes in gas, electric, and hydronic heating and cooling systems for existing and new construction, residential and commercial installations available. Services include forced air systems, boilers, heat pumps, mini splits. They are, of course, licensed and bonded. Give Justin a call, 999-5957. Of course, here in Minnesota, we're not in Atlanta, but heating season is on the corner. So if you need a tune-up, give Justin a call at Aspire Heating and Control, 218-999-5957.
I'm not going to lie to you. I could probably use a mini split in here right now.
Well, gosh, yeah, we're in great weather. We're like 80 degrees, Liam. You can't believe it.
It's hotter where you are then.
Really? It is.
Yeah, we dropped like 15 degrees, but it's funny here in the Atlanta area, it hit 75 today, and I'm out at my other son's soccer practice, and there are people in coats. It's like people here, like, if they're not uncomfortably warm, like they don't know. So they're like, "Oh, just make this really hot." And,
If it's over 65 degrees, I've got a tank top on.
Oh, it's too hot. Especially this time of year, we're just like soaking it in. That's funny though. Yeah, everyone's got their thing. So speaking of, we were talking a little bit about Gretzky before the show, and yeah, he's turned into, I'm 48, so practically the same age. Watching Gretzky when he was going through his career, he seemed like the shy guy. But from what I've seen and from the stories I've heard, it's like you could sit at a bar with him and he'll tell story after story for hours. Did that surprise? I mean, I don't know how much you knew about him before. You probably did because of the Islanders, Oilers, back in the day. But has that surprised you at all, or just thoughts there?
I think that was my biggest, honestly, it was my biggest concern going into the job, was that Gretzky would come in and a week into this, he'd be like, these guys are clowns. What am I doing? Like, I'm Wayne Gretzky. I don't need to do this. Not going to add to my legacy in any way. Your nickname is the Great One. Like, it's cemented. And I knew him a little bit. I didn't know him well. I'd been around him, but not in any social setting. And he is a different person in social settings than he is, during public appearances. And, if you can get him laid back and get him talking and get him going, which I think is what, the beauty of the show is, you can forget you're on television, which can be dangerous, obviously. And we've run into that plenty of times and probably will continue to. But if you can forget about that for a little bit and let your guard down and let people in, some incredible things can happen. And so my concern, otherwise, beside the idea of him just maybe not being as interested in it, was, is he really going to let people hear these stories? Or are these stories sacred to him? And this feeling that, this happened in the locker room, I'm not going to share it. And I'm sure there are some that are there that he won't go into. But for the most part, I mean, he's given us some pretty incredible tales. And the nice thing is he then, because he watches the game so much now, he can relate it. And we're lucky right now, obviously lucky to have him regardless, but we're really lucky right now to have him while McDavid is going through the stuff that McDavid is going through, sure, which is ripping up this league and playing at a level that no one else has seen and no one else can touch, but trying to get over that hump, trying to win that title. And it's obviously taken longer than it took Gretzky to win, but he can relate. He said, I remember when the records didn't matter to other people. Like, we had to win. He's like, I distinctly remember where it's like, hey, no one cares anymore. Like, win a cup. And that desire to win that he had, he sees in McDavid. He sees a guy who, when people see a guy who's maybe, prickly and, not the greatest personality to me, he sees a guy who's he's pissed off. Like, he just wants to win, and he doesn't want to deal with these questions because he's annoyed. He's angry. He's giving everything he has. So to have his expertise throughout this, these last few years has been, just phenomenal and absolutely priceless for us.
Yeah, there's an ironic connection to that too. It's like you're looking at the greatest to ever play the game, and he started his career in Edmonton, and now you're seeing another one that's ripping it up in Edmonton and starting to climb into being one of the next greatest in his career. And you even go back to when you're talking about Gretzky, it didn't take him very long to win his first cup, and he proceeded to win 4 of them in a row. And he really had to get through those teams that you were talking about. Like, you talk about the Islanders, who were like a dynasty back in 81, 82, 83, and finally in 84, 85, and that time frame is when the Oilers finally and I remember him telling a story in one of his videos that he put out, like a Gretzky Above and Beyond. I used to watch that all the time, and it was kind of like my pregame show. I'm gonna watch his play. But I remember him talking about, there was a time where I would go back and he said, I was walking by the locker room after we had just lost the Stanley Cup Finals. I was walking by the locker room one direction to go by the Islanders locker room, and I looked over there and I saw all of the players with ice bags on their shoulders and on their knees, and guys were crawling in and out of the ice tub, and he remembered thinking to himself, that's what it takes to win. I got guys that are putting their suits back on and walking out of the building right now. And he's like, these guys are literally having to roll out of the building right now. They put their lives on the line in order to win this game. And it's like, that's got to be what it takes to win. And
Absolutely.
Shortly after.
I love that story. You know, it really resonates. And I think, you know, he makes the point also that, like, he didn't want to walk this locker room because he expected to hear them, like, basically popping champagne.
Yeah.
And just like screaming, yelling, hooting, hollering, crushing beers. And he's like, no, it's quiet. It's like, these guys were destroyed. Like, and there's this good behind the scenes footage of the Oilers this year after they lost. And it's so quiet in the locker room that you can hear the PA announcing the celebration on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the look in their faces. And, like, just, you know, and the fact that they came back, right, where this series was over and they forced a game 7, and it must have felt like this is our destiny at this point.
Yeah.
It's chilling in a way, right? And it makes you, you know, it makes you wonder, is this just another chapter in a great story? Are we going to see something next year now? But the look in their eyes, like, I mean, grown men with, you know, just devastated. And I think Gretzky respects the fact that, like, you know, you have to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
And that suffering eventually makes you stronger. And it's another great thing about the sport.
Yeah.
It just is. And it's collective, like, from the, you know, from the fourth line guy to the star of the team, right? It's everybody's pain, everybody's sacrifice.
Well, even the guy that's, you know, maybe played a couple of playoff games and got called up at the end of the year from the American Hockey League and didn't get to dress, but he's part of the practices every day and in and out of the locker rooms. And this guy wants to jump out on the ice after game 7. These guys are maybe not dressed in the game, but if it's an overtime game or the third period, they know they're going to win game 7. They go put their gear on and they run out onto the ice afterwards. These guys want to get involved in it too. It's like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about the sport of hockey. It really is. You know, and I thought it was cool a few years ago when they had that video that went around, and I know a couple of people did articles about how you almost couldn't get a player to start a sentence with the word "I." You know, it's this "we" mentality, right? And I think it's funny. I mean, it exists to this day with a guy like Wayne Gretzky, where I mean, listen, he knows who he is, and he has earned every bit of it. But even with our team at TNT, like, he has this very big team mentality about making the show better and it being better for everybody. And I think that's what makes it go, because I think that's the other thing is, you mentioned having, like, Biz on one side and Gretzky on the other side. The fascination that Biz obviously has with Gretzky, I mean, it's obvious. Like, there are times he looks at him, like, and you see, like, 8-year-old Biz, like,
yeah.
You know, he's so excited.
Yeah.
But Gretzky's almost equal fascination with how Biz's mind works. It's something that, like, it tickles me, like, every time we're on, because it's like Gretzky will ask follow-up questions. He's like, what do you mean by, like, what do you possibly mean by what you just said? Or, like, that makes no sense. And the fact that Gretzky is, like, willing to entertain, like, everything that he says and does, and they go back and forth. I don't know. I get a kick out of how much Gretzky gets a kick out of the whole show. And I hope, I think the people at home do too. And I think that's why it works. I mean, we like being around each other. You know,
you guys have fun.
I miss watching games with them. Like, that's what, like, the summers are great, and I spend time with my kids, and it's awesome. But it's funny, like, it got a little cooler today in Atlanta, and I got that feeling. You know, it's like, I want to sit down with these guys. I want to watch a game, and, you know, just talk some trash to each other.
Not bad.
Well, it's, you know, I guess along those lines, what are some of your most memorable moments of the year, or even the finals, and not necessarily just the games, and maybe it was something, while you were watching or something. You know, of course, you guys pull the nets out in the sticks, and you guys are, you know, showing different things. What does anything really pop to mind of just the last year? It was like,
I mean, we had some, we had some wild moments last year. You know, Biz and I had a bet about getting a tattoo on air, which luckily neither one of us had to. But these are also, like, decisions that are made at, like, 1:45 or 2 in the morning on air, you know, after you've been there for, like, 13 hours, and, no good decision is being made at that time ever. And you probably shouldn't make one on national TV live. But we wound up getting, so the bet changed where we had to get pied in the face by mascots. And no one told us, like, behind the scenes, the cool thing about TNT is, like, all these wheels are turning. You kind of come up with ideas. We say things and they go out there and you think people forget about them. Someone at TNT is always listening and basically always planning and scheming something.
Oh, yeah.
And, so we had this thing where, like, oh, the mascots aren't coming, and Anson and Keith Yandel was in that night. They're going to pie you in the face. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, we got to pay this off. It's not going to be that good. And then all of a sudden, from behind the scenes, like, these two mascots come running out. And, listen, the Kraken mascot and Biz have obviously, they got a history and they don't get along. They've wrestled, which would be another, which would be another big moment. But this guy hopped a flight from Seattle and was in our studio for hours hiding. And then the Braves mascot, because we're in Atlanta. Also, I'm a huge Mets fan, and I live in Atlanta, and I hate the Braves. Like, I hate them. I told my kids they can root for any team down here they want. If they root for the Braves, they got to find another place to live because they're not letting you. And like they pie us in the face, and I'd say, like, they went pretty hard. Like, both of us actually were bleeding after. Like, they smashed that thing right into our. Now, as I'm wiping this off, I look over. Keith Yandel's got one of them in a headlock. He's dropping elbows. He's not messing around. Like, this is like a full-fledged brawl. And so, like, and I could tell, like, when I'm basically the one who's communicating with everyone behind the scenes. And it could be nonverbal because they're talking to me in my IFB, all the people in the control room, producers and directors. It is silent because they don't know what to do. So they're just rolling, seeing where this is going. And I was like, I'm not even sure we're on the air anymore. And like, they could just cancel this. But this thing went on for minutes, and it was hysterical, and it was ridiculous. And then the cool thing is, like, Gretzky's not on that night, and we'll get a text from Gretzky like, that was absurd. And I'm like, it's 2 a.m. What do you do? He's like, I can't believe I just watched what I just watched. So, like, we had some really cool moments. Listen, we had great moments at the beginning with Vertaka too. I think it was priceless having a guy like him on with his playing experience, his coaching experience. But, we got Tocchet out there. I was asking him, like, because I can't remember what coach it was, but he was trying to break a stick on the bench and he couldn't. And it was like, it just was a bad look. So all of a sudden we're out. Yeah, all of a sudden we're outside. They wouldn't let us do it in the studio because we were going to break too much stuff. But they're like, yeah, if you want to break some stuff, we'll go outside. And all of a sudden we're out in the loading dock of TNT, and Tocchet's out there hammering sticks and breaking them, and we're throwing sticks. But then there's also the idea, like, and I think the cool thing about TNT, one of the great things, especially I worked at NBC, and it was, it was a great job and I loved it, but it was different. And I don't think there was a ton of crossover between the sports. I did a lot of the different ones, but you didn't see a lot of the athletes together. It's a big place, and timing being what it is, you just weren't around each other a lot. Here, the NBA, the NHL, and when Major League Baseball's in, like, we're on top of each other. Like, you can't help but, like, interact, and it's so cool. But have Shaq just constantly decide to walk in on the show, and from what I've been told, this was just his decision. Like, the NBA people barely even knew he was doing it. In fact, they have a viewing room, and so it was like, "Where's Shaq? We're going on in a few minutes." And someone pointed up at the TV, like, "Oh, he's on the NHL. What is he doing? Is he walking in on skateboards?" And pretending he's Shaq Hyman, and that he's he's a net front presence, and I mean, it's such a unique place to work. But to have those, to have that crew embrace us. I mean, those guys are legends, and him, Chuck, Kenny, and EJ. I mean, those are like the greatest in the business. And to have them sit there and be like, "We like what you do, we want to be a part of it." Also, I don't know, man. That's about as cool as it gets.
Yeah, it's pretty humbling, I'm sure.
We should probably hit a break.
Yeah, we'll hit a break, and then we'll come back and kind of recap things and settle everything up.
All right, we'll be right back. You're tuned to the Tea with Ms. McGill.
You're enjoying the episode. Grand Rapids Chevrolet GMC, they're looking for a sales consultant or two. Please check out their listing on Indeed. Back to more from Liam McHugh. hit that like button. We'd appreciate that.
All right, welcome back to the Tea with Ms McGill Show, of course, with our special guest, Mr. Liam McHugh from TNT. Real quick, word from the Rink Sports Bar Grill over in Eveleth. You've heard us talk about them before, just down from the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Specials, just about every night, Monday through Saturday. Mondays, burger night. Tuesdays, taco night. Wednesdays is Wing Wednesday. Fish fry on Friday, of course, all you can eat, the best fish fry over there in the Quad Cities. And then Saturday nights, the prime rib, king cut, just $28.99. So give Michelle a call over at the Rink Sports Bar and Grill, 248-8582, 248-8582, and let her know the Tea with Ms McGill Show sent you. All right, Liam. Shaq, you're just kind of mentioned Shaq a little bit there. How massive is he? And the reason, I mean, we all know he's big, but we're all, like I said, around the same age. And I remember going to the mall in the 90s. I remember they had his shoe on display, Reebok.
Yeah.
Out of the shoe stores that have an actual replica of it. And it looked like a pan you would put your turkey in for Thanksgiving. This thing is so big. Just what I mean, not only his personality, but just how massive is this man?
He is the doorway, right? Like that's basically it. I mean, he is that large, and we have NBA TV down there as well. So like, there are big people walking around constantly. Like there's ex-NBA players, and these guys are like 6'7", 6'8", big men. And then Shaq comes in, and everyone could hide behind him. He's a mountain. And it's funny because like he'll walk into a room quietly, and then like just sidle up to people. And you turn around, and you're like, oh God, like But I will say we had some. One of the best moments we have with Shaq behind the scenes was we were out in this common room watching the game. It's one of those playoff nights where baseball's there, basketball's there, and we're there. So it's busy. And we're trying to watch this game and start a little bit earlier than the basketball. And the makeup room, which is right there, is very loud. Music's pumping. And now I know that means there's probably people in there, and it's probably NBA guys. And they're just sort of getting into their mode and trying to get ready for the night. Now, Rick Tocchet is sitting there and he's getting annoyed because he can't hear the game well enough. And he looks at me because I'm closer, technically, like 5 feet closer. He's like, go in there. He's like, yeah, tell him. He's like, turn that down. And I know there's definitely those guys in there. So I said, yeah, no. I said, why don't you go in there? I was like, they'll listen to you. I said, like whoever it is. And he walks in, he's like in a huff now. He's got like this, he's got his talk face as if he's like going to drop the gloves, 25 years ago. And he walks over to the door. And as he gets there, Shaq walks in and he's just surrounded by Shaq. And he goes, oh, hey, Shaq, what's up, man? And he turns right around and comes right back and sits down. And he's like trying not to make eye contact with me after. I'm just like, hey, buddy. I'm like, good job there.
I told you. It's probably not going to happen.
And the music stayed on and stayed on.
Yeah, they did what they wanted. Oh, that's funny. Well, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of props here. I teach high school. I teach high school health and phy ed, and I coach high school hockey, and I coach high school football. But the way that this podcast started 90 episodes ago, we've been doing this for a few years, is he decided, Puka decided he wanted to do something. He has another podcast that he does for stock car racing. And he said, you know what, something needs to be done for area hockey. And he was thinking about this, and he turns the TV on one night, and he's listening to a playoff hockey game that is on local television here across the Iron Range. And he's listening, and he hears the guy's voice on there that's doing the color commentating, and he's trying to figure out who that is. He's
so good. I'm like, who is this guy?
Tries to recognize who the guy is that's doing it, and then come to find out it's me, and he knows me because he's my guy that takes care of my retirement funds. He works as all the financial for me as far as teachers. And long story short, we got this started because he's like, well, I like listening to your analysis when you do these high school games, and let's see if we can get a podcast going. Lo and behold, we've been doing it for 90 episodes now, and it's been fun. But just to kind of to pump you a little bit, that you kind of have like, I like my job. I like teaching, I like coaching, but you kind of have, after a couple of years of doing analysis on high school sports, and I'd done some Minnesota Duluth Bulldog games too as well. Like, you got like the dream job of being able to be out there, and I love doing television. It's a little different job, obviously. You've got host in the studio. There's guys that are up in the booth calling the game, but I really enjoy doing sports like that and doing live television and whatnot. It's just, I think it's awesome what you do, and you bring some life to between the periods. And I just want to shoot you some props.
Well, I can't tell you like how much I appreciate this, because I have to say, I've now been doing this a pretty long time, and I've never enjoyed it more than I enjoy it now. And I think the hope is for all of us that it comes across that like no one's faking anything. Like, no one's faking energy, no one's faking enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Everything's real. And I don't know. I'm very, very lucky to have had the career I've had, but I feel even luckier just being where I am right now with the people. And I think you guys know, like, every job, I think no matter what you do in life, so much of it comes down to who you do it with.
Yeah.
And can you be around people that you gel with, and can you be around people with just good energy, right? Just make you feel better. And that's what TNT has been for me. And listen, it's a pinch myself type job, and we're lucky we get to do it. Job's a relative term, right? I mean, we're lucky to get to do this, and people should know, like, I understand that. I'm grateful, and I'm grateful that people watch. So I appreciate you saying what you said.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
No, well, yeah. So why don't we step in? I noticed the season starts. NHL drops the puck 4 weeks from Friday. What do you look at? I mean, what do you got? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? And who you got? Who you got for the cup?
I'd say it's hard not to pick the Oilers. It really is. Panthers have been through wars the last couple of years, and they've lost a bunch of guys. So it would be incredible if they made another run. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, because there's a mental toughness to that team. I just think this is it. The Oilers, and I think listen. I know a few things happened off season where they lost a couple guys surprisingly, but I think the re-signing of Draisaitl, just the idea that means almost certainly that McDavid will re-sign, and that this elite team will remain in Edmonton, because I think there was a thought that, like, had they exited early this year, had things fallen apart the way they were at the beginning of the season, that these guys would be on the move. And what would that mean for the next 20 years for Edmonton, where it's not easy to get free agents? So to me, that is the biggest story, is this team keeping these superstars there and going and chasing that cup and watching McDavid do his thing. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the fact that Winter Classic, we're going to be in Chicago on New Year's Eve.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Oh, awesome. Like, I mean, Wrigley Field, New Year's Eve, seeing that team play, and a fan base that, is starting to feel pretty good. Obviously, when you have a guy like Connor Bedard, you can watch him, spotlight follows him, and he's another guy who stepped into it and looked like he deserves it. And I've said I have a soft spot. I'm 5'10", so anybody who's like normal size and can be that amazing, and I can show it to my children and be like, you can play these sports, like, you can do this. Don't worry, I haven't cursed you completely. So I'm really excited about that. And then I think the cool thing is we came off what I thought was maybe one of the best regular seasons I'd ever seen. And there are people that say I can just watch hockey for the playoffs, and I get it. The intensity is there. Last regular season had stories. It had streaks. It had like elite level scoring. It had drama on and off the ice. If we get something even close to that, I think, we're in for something magical.
So how about your Sabres? Well, actually, let's go back to Edmonton quick. I forget. People forget. Yeah, how terrible. Then did the coaching change about November? It had to have been.
Yep.
Yeah. Until you mentioned that, I kind of forgot about that. Then they rallied back. Not only made the playoffs, made it all the way to the cup. But so how about the Sabres? What's going on? Any improvements? I haven't really followed.
It's not a team that's like vastly improved. Certainly not. And they the thing about hockey is, given the parity, right, and given the way the league is designed, you should almost accidentally make the playoffs at some point, right? Like you should get.
Well, the Islanders did it last year. Didn't they kind of accidentally make it?
Exactly. Like it happens. Like it really does. And listen, I think like the Minnesota Wild are one of those teams that like they've had some solid years, but like you don't have to be outstanding. Like you can be a solid team and get in. And the Sabres, they're at the point now where like the expectation is heartbreaking, right? And I think that's the hard part, right? It's like you have fans that don't even want to believe, and they don't want the hope because they don't want their hearts ripped out halfway.
It sounds like being a Vikings fan, to be honest.
I mean, there's similarities.
It really does. If you knew what happens, if you paid a close attention to the NFL, it's like that in Minnesota. It's like this is the year, and then it's like
It's never the year.
It's like a crotch punch right out of the gate. Like
and I feel like I was one of those people last year who was like, I go on Buffalo Radio. I was like, don't worry. I said they're in next year, and because of their team and the way it's designed, I was like, they're in for the next decade because once they're in, they'll just stay in, and they're young and talented.
Yeah.
And then last year happened. So I'm not going to be invited on any of those shows anymore. But we'll see. They deserve it. It's a tremendous fan base, and it's one that lives and dies with these teams. So, man, I hope so. And frankly, I think hockey in the East is a little bit more exciting when the Sabres are in, because when you pack that place in Buffalo, like it is just a wild scene. So, I hope so, man. I really do.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, I was last year, I was on the Edmonton train, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they have, but just kind of hearing what you were saying about how this team, they could have dismantled if they would have been out. And it seems like guys are signing deals and making plans to stick around, probably doing what happened close to the end of Gretzky's time at Edmonton before he moved off to Los Angeles. Like their contract situations there with a number of players like him and Messier and some of the other guys that said, I want to take a pay cut in order to keep this group of guys together. If you want to pay me that much, then do this and this and this to keep this guy so that we can keep the dynasty rolling. And the selflessness of some of these professional players. I know it's difficult in the world of NHL players and even professional players because you got somebody that's taking care of, your contract negotiations for you. And that person, the more money you make, the more money that person makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got an agent that's doing that. But some of these guys have the guts to say, I don't care. I have enough money right now. I want to win a championship. And this is what's important to these guys and keeping the band together, as well.
I agree, and I think what's smart is, it's great to hear from a guy like Leon Draisaitl saying, like, this is where I want to be. And if I retire an Oiler, that would be fantastic. But more to your point, it's like, you look around and there's this idea that the grass is greener and certainly, listen, weather-wise, like you could get better than Edmonton. I think everyone knows that. It's a giant secret.
Yeah.
But I think Draisaitl also looks at this team and says, like, where am I going to go that has a better chance of winning? Where, like, there's no guarantee, and certainly there's no guarantee that I guarantee you're not going to play with a better player than McDavid or a guy who's more driven than McDavid. So I think he sees it as a special place. And I don't know. I'm excited for it. I like it. Like I said, I root for the Sabres. I like a smaller market. And I like a fan base that's they're following every moment, on and off the ice, and they can't wait for that puck to drop. I mean, they were that close last year, and they're going to be all in this year. And the cool thing is, I don't think the Oilers are going to be stumbling out of the gates this year. I think it's a revved up team. It's a team that's on a mission. And I don't know. To me, it's a great thing about sports. And listen, I'm an NBA fan. I'm a huge Knicks fan. But it is the difference, really, in many ways, between the NBA and the NHL, where like I have trouble buying my kids jerseys for the NBA because by the time like they grow into them, the guy's on another team. You know, guys move around. They just do. And it's different from like when we were younger. Like when I was a kid, Patrick Ewing wasn't losing to the Pacers and then saying like, "Oh, I'll sign with the Pacers."
Yeah, right.
Or get me on the Bulls. Let me go. It was like, I got to beat Jordan. I can't go play with him. And I think there's a mentality that exists in the NHL that's still there, where it's like, let's get it done here.
Real quick, we'll let you go there. Speaking of stumbles and guys that take team-friendly deals, the Penguins. I mean, what a shocking year last year. Now Gensel's obviously gone. I'm really interested to see what they, of course, when they picked up Carlson last summer, I thought, well, geez, of course they're going to make the playoffs. And I think they had like one of the worst. I don't know how many games he did there, but I think they had one of the worst power plays with all that talent, with everybody. And that's gonna be an interesting one to watch. See if they can regroup, because I think they were the oldest average age team last year. This is it. It's time. It's shit. I got off the pot now.
It's a fascinating story, and it's weird to watch playoff hockey without Sidney Crosby. And what's even weirder about this is that all of this is happening while Crosby's still playing elite level hockey, not like elite for his age, top 10 in the world type level hockey. He's still there. Carlson, who I think is a dynamic player, didn't fit. It just wasn't working. And that power play kind of looked like everyone was looking at each other, and Carlson's style didn't fit the style that they wanted to play. I don't know. It was kind of troubling to watch, because you almost want to see them put on a show, right? With who was on the ice during these power plays, you're like, wow, this should be magical. Instead, it looked really disconnected, disjointed. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you can put a bunch of parts on the team and they look good on paper, but this isn't fantasy hockey, it's real hockey. And if they're not gelling, they're not gelling. I don't know. For me personally, I would like to see Crosby in the playoffs. Yeah. I just want to see him, because I think in the playoffs, where being a two-way center is more important than it is during the regular season. I think you see the greatness of Sidney Crosby. You see him winning every big face-off. You see him shutting down, the opposing center, and then scoring big goals. So I selfishly would love to see him in the playoffs. I think this team is at a weird crossroads, though.
Yeah,
that core is getting older, and the other older players are not playing at the level that Crosby is playing at. It's just the fact of the matter. And Gensel's a huge piece to not have. Not only a great scorer in the regular season, but one of those weird elite playoff scorers where you go to the playoffs and you're like, wow, his numbers are much better. Yeah. He's great in the regular season. He's better in the playoffs. He scores just all the time. So it's a lot to replace. I frankly, I don't see them making the playoffs. And it's just bizarre now after 16, whatever was straight years of Crosby, basically since his rookie year where they missed going through, to see him now multiple years miss. But I think they probably miss again.
Oof. Wow. Yeah. Prediction. But yeah, like I said, that's what I'm watching. I'm fascinated to see what kind of happens there. So, well, that's all I've got. Anything else?
No, I just appreciate your time. This was awesome. We love to do in our off season. We're going to be starting up here with our actual seasonal type of podcast where we kind of break down the area games and kind of ending with what I think is an awesome interview here. We may have one or two more, but this one's going to be a pretty memorable one here. The interview season is during the off season where we bring guests in and talk, and this has got to go down as probably one of the best ones we've had. Just listening to some expertise of a guy that's watched a lot of hockey with a lot of guys that have some knowledge that get to tell you everything that they see and you get to learn from some of the best. This has been fun for me.
Well, it's been awesome for me too. I appreciate, listen, I have a lot of love for Minnesota, and my in-laws are there, and my kids, they spend a lot of time. So we have a lot of love for all the people in Minnesota. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
You kind of won the in-law lottery. You got great in-laws. I
got great in-laws. And I got to tell you, there is not a single person who watches more of me on television than my mother-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yes. Actually, I'm getting show notes regularly, so it's
that's all I found out about you. Because she was my son's second grade teacher. It's like, well, my son-in-law, if you're into hockey, he's NBC at that time. I'm like, that's your son-in-law? Like, what?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he lived over here. We moved around, and my dad and I was like, oh, like this maze. It was just like I couldn't believe it. So that was the first time I really, was like, okay, so I got to pay attention to this guy. He's got Iron Range connections.
That's right. No, I love it. It's a great place with just amazing people. So yeah, I appreciate what you guys do as well. And thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Say hi to your in-laws for me. Be
You
well.
got it.
Good luck this
All
year.
right. All right. Take care,
Take
guys.
care. All right, awesome. So Liam McHugh, great job. Thank you so much. Iron Range Apparel, new location in Virginia, right next to the connected to the Super One, not the downtown Super One, but the Super One out on Highway 53. That's where you get your ODR swag. I showed you that before. They got the winter caps, we got the baseball caps. Also, if you need gear made, reach out to them. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, 741-5138, 741-5138. Tees, visors, hats, hoodies. That's where we get all the Two with Ms McGill merch made. So Iron Ridge Apparel over there in Virginia, of course, the gift buyer's paradise. All right, that was awesome.
Yeah, what an awesome podcast. Like I said, I'm real envious. I love the idea of having a guy that has a job that is kind of like, wow, I would love to have that job. I would go to that job every single day and love what I'm doing. And I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I love coaching and I love teaching kids, but it's like, I like my time when I get an opportunity to go on television and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that he does an awesome job and he's got a great cast with him. It's just fun to have him on here, and weird how the hockey world is so large, but yet so small. Like when you're in the Iron Range in Minnesota, you never know who's connected to who. And when you find out that, through people that in the Iron Range area that, oh, look, Liam McHugh, one of the biggest, studio hosts in, the NHL currently, right there.
I know. It's just unbelievable. So, all right. Anything to add to episode 90?
Nope.
All right. So we'll wrap her up here. We could possibly use an intern for the upcoming winter here. Do you know what they call those? Some of the high schools now they have where kids are like work experience. Like the work experience thing. So any of you kids out there or any teachers, feel free to reach out, Goatsportsmediallc at gmail.com. We might have a few things that we can have them kind of putzing with. They're into technology, into podcasting, that kind of thing. All right. So please comment. You can comment, who's better on TNT, Charles Barkley or Wayne Gretzky. We want to hear that. Squash the follow button. Find us, T McGill on X or Twitter. Search Tea with Ms McGill on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Musi app. On Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, it's Goat Sports Media LLC. Leave a review while you're there. We'd appreciate that. Of course, we've always got the merch. Like I said, we showed the hat. We got hats, tees, hoodies, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. We can get you all taken care of there. And of course, thanks to the, by the way, our partner has returned with Minnesota Hockey Camp, so thank you. But the greatest partners on earth, the Rink Sports Bar and Grill, Iron Range Apparel and ODR Apparel, Fortune Bay Resort and Casino, Aspire Heating and Control, Iron Range Goalie Academy, Grand Rapids Chevrolet GMC, and of course, Minnesota Hockey Camps. For Reed Larson, I am Puka. Get out there and be your dream, just like Liam's doing. Be your dream. You're tuned to the Tea with Ms McGill Show.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you liked the show, please leave a review and subscribe. We would appreciate that. It is Puka. Another show from Goat Sports Media that we'd like to tell you about. If you're into dirt track racing, it is that time of year. The One to Go Show covers dirt track racing in the upper Midwest each and every week. Facebook, YouTube, podcast. So find it at all your favorite places. Join Ryan Aho, hockey coach Jeff Krause, and Bert Lehman is break down all the action weekly. Check them out right now.
Goatsports.